doll that it's the book about Lion King, and it's the video about Lion King, and it's the coloring book that's about Lion King, so that we have more reinforcers, right, that have to do with Lion King. And then maybe we go into just like a video about lions. So we're pulling it slowly away from lions. Because if we just have the Nala doll and we pound, and you're working for the Nala doll, it's not going to be as fun for them. And they're going to be like, why would I work for the Nala doll? I already have the Nala doll. And we all work for reinforcers. And if you think about it, it is when we are all happiest. If everything gets handed to you, not as much fun. When you get something that you haven't had in a while, isn't it more fun for you? Isn't that the truth? So we are artificially creating that. And again, it's not a tease thing. If your child loves Buzz Lightyear, you don't get up and take the Buzz Lightyear doll and go, okay, I'm taking Buzz Lightyear and I'm putting him up on this shelf where you can't get him. Nani, nani, woo, woo. No, that would be the wrong thing. What we do is the child goes to bed and goes to sleep, right? And we take Buzz Lightyear and we put him in a room that he doesn't know, and we do whatever throughout the day. And then it's like time for the thing that's really hard. And we go, oh, okay, we show them an icon. We're gonna work for Buzz Lightyear, and we do. And the kid is like, oh, I want my Buzz Lightyear, and we do the thing, and they get through it, and they're happy in the Buzz, right? And they don't even know you took it and put it in the other room. Right? So that's how we create a state of deprivation. We make things special. We make them sparkly by not making them there all the time. And we do it cleverly and mindfully and not ever as a tease, not ever as a tease. Okay? And we never deprive children of food and liquids, not ever. All right. All right. I think we got that clear. All right, let's move on to our question of the day. What was the first thing that you did after quarantine? Which is kind of funny because we're still a little bit in quarantine. And some people to different degrees, but some of us were even more quarantined than others. And my question for you is like, what is the first thing that you will do after you are quarantined? Because I don't want to assume. I'm back. Do you have me? Sorry, my internet went out. Don't know why. But thrilled to be back. So anyway, we were asking the question, what's the first thing that you did after quarantine, or what's the first thing that you're going to do after quarantine? I don't know about all of you. We quarantined hard, really super hard. And we started quarantine before the quarantine. And we did not go out at all. Like crazy, did not go out at all. People were concerned for me. We live in a major city, and we were able to have groceries delivered, and I was able to work from home, and my son was able to do his schoolwork from home, and my husband was laid off from work. So, and that meant that first his employer paid him, and then his employer, he got unemployment. So we were able to do that. And I know that that's not everybody's story, but we took it very seriously. We were, my husband and I are both older. We have immune issues. Everybody in our family has immune issues. My husband and I had weight we had to lose, and we lost a substantial amount of weight in COVID. We still have more to lose, but we lost like a fourth grader together in terms of weight. But, we were doing everything that we could to minimize the risk. Because I don't know about the rest of you. I was so worried that something was going to happen to us and who was going to take care of our kid. That was my big motivator. the whole time. I was like, I do not want my child to be here in the house in the middle of a pandemic by himself. So we took it super, super seriously. And so the first thing that I did after I was fully vaccinated, the first real thing that I did was go to my son's high school graduation, which was kind of a ginormous thing, and was very freaky to be out. Everybody had to be masked and it was outdoors. It was still freaky for me to be out and about. It was just bizarre. But you want to talk about a reinforcer that we had been working for how many years? Because of my autoimmune issues, I was terrified in getting the vaccine. I was concerned about, for me, what that was going to be, and I talked about it with my doctor. But that was the big reinforcer for me, was that I was going to be able to attend my son's graduation and hopefully, not get sick and die from it. Man, that was like pretty much every waking moment in the last year was like, how can that happen? But what happened for you guys? What was the big deal for you? I will say it was a couple of weeks later before I went to a Trader Joe's, which was another big thing, that the whole time that we were, for the longest time, we could get delivery from so many other places, but you couldn't get delivery from Trader Joe's. And then people opened companies where you could contract so that they would deliver from Trader Joe's. And now it's no big deal. You can order from Trader Joe's. But that was a big deal to me, to go back into the store and be in a Trader Joe's. But what did you guys do? What's the big deal that you couldn't wait for after quarantine? All right, let's move on to our topic of the week, because I see that Bonnie has joined us. Very excited about that. And our topic this week is understanding behavior. It's interesting that somebody wrote me a question yesterday about how to facilitate helping a person on the spectrum moving in with them, and to make it easier. And I wrote back and I said, what a wonderful thing that you're thinking of that and asking questions about that. And I talked about communication, and that communication is key. But here's the asterisk, that people on the autism spectrum communicate in different ways sometimes than you might. Or I might. We all communicate in different ways, but we can't just assume when people say, well, communication is really important, that we're talking about talking it out, right? It is important to understand that absolutely everything that someone does is communication. And this is what I mean about understanding behavior. If I say something to you and you scrunch your eyebrows together, you didn't say to me, I don't understand, or I don't agree, or but you scrunched your eyebrows together. And so if I'm truly listening with all my senses, I saw that behavior, recognized it as communication. I'll say, do you have a question? Are you, is there something about that doesn't ring true for you? Is there something you want to add to it? Right. And I can further the conversation, right? Or I can scrunch my eyebrows back at you. And if you're listening, then, more communication can happen with just our eyebrows. That they estimate that there's only, I think it's 17% of communication that happens in the world that's actually spoken. That the rest, think about that. So that's 83% of the communication that we do is not spoken. And I'm talking about in any community, not just the autism community. So when we look at behavior, a lot of times people get all twisted up in behavior and go, well, that's the one I hear more often that makes me crazy, is when people go, well, they're just not respectful. Because I'm like, that's some real expectation about behavior. Let's look at the behavior. What is the behavior? And if we think about what is the behavior communicating, for a lot of people, they'll default to, well, that was disrespect. But is that the case? I've heard this from dads who will say, well, my son on the spectrum, he doesn't show me respect. And if a 4 or 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old doesn't understand what respect is, or understand what you mean by respect, you're not going to get it. You got to look at the behavior and go, what is being communicated here? And am I communicating back in a way that is meaningful to this individual? So often we get it confused, right? That a behavior happens and we make an assumption about what it is and what it means without really understanding what is being communicated. So if you can just change one thing today, when you see a behavior that someone is doing, asking yourself the question, what's being communicated right now? What do I think that person is saying to me? If they could hold up a billboard and instead of doing that behavior, what would it be? And then you can begin to understand, because there is communication. There's a need to communicate in everyone. It's just that some people are going to do it differently than others. And that's not just the autism spectrum, right? I learned as a school teacher that, I don't have time. I'm teaching and I'm up talking. I don't have time, but I can throw Johnny a look and be like, right? That says volumes to Johnny, and it gets my need across, right? Teachers have all kinds of things. We point, we'll be talking about something else, but we'll be tapping a book, tapping a desk, right? That's all communication. So think about the people in your life that are behaving in a way that is not your favorite thing, and ask yourself, what do I think they're communicating right now? And how might I communicate back to that, as opposed to all the things that I packed into it that I thought it might be. Yeah. All right. Having said that, it's time to move on because Bonnie is here. We have the amazing Bonnie Yates. She is a special education attorney with Tollner Law Offices. She is amazing, and I'm so lucky that I get to have her with us here on the show as a regular, and also that I consider her a good friend. So Bonnie, how lucky am I? Bonnie, welcome.
You're lucky because you're wearing really psychedelic blue purple. That's my favorite color.
Yeah, well, it must have been some Vulcan mind meld, because this morning I was like, what am I going to wear? And I was like, I got to wear this today.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. Hi, Shannon. Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be here. We have some interesting topics to cover today that hopefully will help you navigate your child's IEP. I'm supposed to tell you that I'm here courtesy of Tollner Law Offices. We're a 12 attorney firm in San Jose, California. We offer free consultations to anybody in California. If you go to our website, you can find the paperwork for that. You can also reach me. My email address is on the website. My phone number is 310-245-1968. Shannon and I started this, I don't know, so many years ago, and the time has gone fast. And our idea was not that this would be a substitute for you meeting with an attorney to discuss your individual problem, which I would always encourage people to do. I would say generally in special education, you can talk to multiple attorneys because most of them do not charge for the initial consultation. They want to get to know you and see if they can help you, and you can learn a lot in those situations. But we wanted to teach people about the IDEA, because the IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, was supposed to be for parents to be able to access their child's rights under the IDEA. And everything went sideways and got very formal and very statute and regulation heavy and very rule heavy. And now it's a practice increasingly of lawyers. So we're trying to take a little bit of that power back and give you some information so that when you go to that meeting, you won't feel so disempowered because you don't know whether what you're being told is truthful or not. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff going on. And when I peeked at LRP this morning, Special Ed Connection, they had an interesting article on something that has bothered me, but I didn't really articulate how it was a violation. And you will have seen this in more than one context. Oftentimes at the initial IEP, the districts don't screen for occupational therapy needs until they have already had the first IEP and established eligibility. And I guess they're thinking as well, if the student's not eligible, this saves us one assessment. But legally, that's not the correct way to handle the situation. because they're supposed to assess in all areas of suspected disabilities. Now, the other place this has been coming up with some districts, and I think you, some of you will have probably had this discussion yourselves with your district. Parents come to the district and they ask for one-to-one ABA support from a trained ABA team. And the district says, oh, well, if you want to do that, the first thing we have to do is do some of them call it a SKIA, which is a made-up term, special circumstances instructional aid. Some of them assessment. It's an assessment to look at whether you need an instructional aid. And yes, you guessed it. Most of the time, the assessment is just going to buy the district 60 days. There's also LA Unified. If you ask for behavior services, they say the only, you can't ask for that. We have to do a functional behavior assessment before we can even have that discussion. So anyway, I'm just minding my own business. And I looked at this article and I thought, this is good. Let's talk about it on the show. So make earnest efforts to fulfill IEP objectives. This is obviously the special education publication, the editors writing up this stuff for school district administrators. So even if staffing and resources are in short supply, districts should make earnest efforts to fully implement students' individualized education programs as required under the law. 34 CFR 300.323, CFR is the federal regulations that implement the idea, provides that a district must implement the IEP by providing as soon as possible special education and related services that accord with the student's IEP. Districts should not delay special education and related services nor acquiesce service delivery efforts by the IEP team to systemic practices, for example. In May, the Maine Department of Education found a systemic violation of state law and the IDEA by a district's practice of mandating social work assessments before adding counseling services to the student's IEP. In Lewiston, the state educational department determined that a student with emotional disturbance was delayed services for 3 months due to the practice and ordered compensatory counseling services. The state also required the district to clarify its policy regarding adding counseling to a student's IEP to reflect deference to the IEP team decision-making process. So I was like, hey, that's cool. I just filed a case against LA Unified where that's exactly what they did. They said to the mom, no behavior services because you haven't had a functional behavior assessment. Then they did a functional behavior assessment that like blew my mind because this is what they did. The student was at that time engaged in distance learning at home. He was at home because even after the parents got a mask accommodation for him, the districts didn't want to deal with it. LA Unified people didn't want to deal with it, so they sent him home. That's another chapter of the same story, right? Because they thought that since his mom was from a low-income community, that she was going to take her kid home. So anyway, the district policy is that they aren't doing any in-home assessment. So we had our student doing his synchronous learning at home, because as you know, LA Unified does have a virtual curriculum this year. And then on another screen, so he's looking at a screen, and then she's looking at him on another screen, evaluating his behavior. And I might add, evaluating his behavior from kind of like the elbow crease up, right? Right? Because she can't see what he's doing with the lower part of his body. I mean, if his behavior becomes extreme enough and he tries to elope, which was the whole function of the behavior support plan, yeah, then she'll see that. But how does she figure out the antecedents if she can't even see his whole body? What if his mom, God bless her, put him in a pair of pants that have a really itchy tag, and the tag is getting on his nerves, and that's causing him to fidget and then act out? So anyway, my point is, I filed for due process but I don't like that I didn't know to articulate that it was illegal to require him to put his needs on hold and not look at them until the functional behavior assessment was complete. So that's point one for the morning is they can't, they have to, as a team, when they get together, they're empowered to offer whatever the student needs. And they can't wait on it if they have compelling information that the student needs a service. They can't say, yeah, we just, we're going to send you an assessment plan. That'll take 15 days. Then you have 15 days to return it. So that's 30 days. And then we have 60 days to do the assessment and hold an IEP meeting. So that's 90 days. You can really see the cost saving, right?
Yeah. Bonnie, this is huge because I certainly have been through this with my son. I can remember when he was in kindergarten, they had, they identified that there was an issue, that it was hard to get him to write, that he didn't like writing time. He didn't want to do that. So they agreed to do a functional behavior assessment. And I think it took the rest of the school year. I think it was first grade before they got around to coming up with, and then there were weeks upon weeks where they had meetings before they came up with the behavior intervention plan. We lost a year because they ditzed around, which made me crazy.
Well, and that's clearly illegal because they have to complete the assessment within 60 days. But I haven't even had a chance to like really debrief about this with a behaviorist because I just had to file, so I haven't had that conversation. But think about it's like there are multiple levels of potential limitation on how you can accurately view and collect the information. You just can't see enough in that setting. And really the only clue we had was that this was a student that was not able to access distance learning. So, I mean, they're seeing him at his worst in a certain sense, but they're also not getting a complete picture. And then this assessment is going to be used to make a decision about whether or not he needs one-to-one ABA support. So it's pretty fundamental. So that was issue one of the morning. Going back here. Issue 2 was a little article called Use the Golden Thread Method to Draft Strong IEPs. So myself, what is a golden thread method?
That was my big question.
When did I miss learning about the golden thread method? Okay, well, here's what they have to say. The golden thread method is predicated on the idea that when you start with strong data collection, then that data collection carries you through the entire IEP. Well, then I was like, well, I definitely have to read this because my general impression is that IEPs are replete with references to how the classroom teacher or whatever support person will take data to find out if the goal is met for the year. But when you actually get around to asking for that data, if you do, you'll either get nothing or not much. And this is another issue that's been bothering me, and I've been feeling like I need more to say about it. So let's see what they have to say. I'm sure you all have had the experience with having them say they're collecting data and you get back one piece of paper with some columns and some smiley faces and said, Brendan had a great day today or something. Right. Anyway.
Well, and just when you were saying what they had done to me was illegal, part of it was that they did the assessment and they were taking the data and then they were interpreting the data and then they were writing the BIP. But what I got was a sheet of paper with hash marks on it. That was okay. How the data arrived. But my thing has always been, Bonnie, is that I don't think that they train anybody on how to take data.
Well, that might be why the data looks the way it does, Shannon. So here's some stuff for people to chew on.
Okay.
Insufficient data tends to be what parent attorneys really hone in on. So of course, because we're all insecure, right? Professionally insecure. Like, Man, am I doing enough homing in on this issue? You know, it tends to be the focus of a lot of due process hearings. Strong data collection is good practice in terms of writing a legally compliant IEP. It's also a proactive way to prepare yourself for the best possible situation if you do end up in a hearing. IEPs must contain a statement of the child's present levels of academic achievement and functional performance, including how the child's disability affects the child's involvement and progress in the general ed curriculum. This present level of academic achievement and functional performance essentially creates a baseline for designing an educational program and measuring future progress. And they cite a case from Bakersfield. Okay, so that's what we call the PLOPs, the present levels of performance. Those are something that should be discussed in the beginning of the IEP before you get to goal progress. Okay, is where is the student at now based on objective criteria? Strong data collection can also help IEP teams avoid pitfalls like writing goals that are not measurable or that are too aggressive, too ambitious, or not ambitious enough. Well, my cynical take on that is that a lot of the time, at least 75% of the time, 70% of the time, I feel as if they're purposely writing squishy goals so that they can measure them at the end of the reporting period. So if you don't establish in the goal what it is that you want the student to do and how many prompts he needs and what kind of prompts and what's his percentage of accuracy and number of trials, it's going to be a lot easier for somebody to say in a year from now that the student meets the goals. And I really do believe that certain IEP teams don't want to write measurable goals. But the way this article is written, it's suggesting that districts do and they just don't know how to do it. And it's probably some of both. So just a couple more things about this. Though the law
we've got some questions that are coming in too.
Okay.
If you have a second to see. Yeah.
Okay. So which ones do you want me to answer?
Well, do you want to finish your thought first and then we'll deal with questions? Because they're
yeah, what we'll do is there's a third piece of this and we can do the third piece another time. Okay. Though the law doesn't require baseline data for every IEP goal, it can be very helpful. It helps you determine how aggressive you want the goal to be or how much progress you want to see in the coming year. It's difficult to do that if you don't have clear information about current performance levels. If you have good student-specific data, then you can write a strong present level statement. Use qualitative and quantitative information that reflects not only numerical data about student performance level, but also descriptive data about how it impacts a student's ability to access and make progress in the general education curriculum. Our goal for kids is to fill these holes in their skill sets that are hindering their ability to access general education program curriculum. Once you have strong present levels, it very easily directs discussion in terms of what you need, goals, and what they should be. It helps you set realistic performance criteria. Anyway, they go on to say that you need to really individualize goals. Quote, we tend to see almost every goal being written for 80% compliance by the end of the year. That's definitely true. Instead, make the goal more individualized by basing it on how the student is currently doing. Data will help you set current performance. For example, if the student's present level suggests that this is an emerging skill for the student, then 80% after 1 year may be too ambitious a goal. Using present level data here can help school-based IEP team members explain to parents why they're only looking for 30% progress for the year. Depending on the individual student, 30% may be a lot of growth. Once you have measurable IEP goals, you're more likely to determine reasonable measurement criteria and more likely to get compliant progress reports. So they close by saying, close the loop on the golden thread with progress reports. It's rare to see really strong progress reports, parentheses, it's rare to see them at all. And they're important not only because they're legally required, which they are, but also because they close the loop on the golden thread in that the data from progress reports will potentially become next year's present levels. If you've, at the end of an IEP year, If you have strong progress reports, then you've pretty much compiled all the information you need to go into the next annual IEP meeting. And I would add, and show that the district's offer was FAPE because the student is making progress according to the progress reports.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay, so Deli D has written in and said, I withdrew my son from his school last month, and the school has not yet provided a withdrawal form.
Okay, this is
that
one
kind of concerns me.
Well, this is one where, where like the fire bell starts going off. Districts want you to withdraw your student and turn them into a privately placed student at your own expense. If that was what you were wanting to do, you would not be listening to this program. When you remove your child from school, you need to give the district written notice of the reasons why you're removing him, and you need to make it clear that you're removing him because the district has failed to offer a FAPE, and you have to resort to your own unilateral measures to get him or her the education he needs, and you are not withdrawing him and making him a privately placed student. Okay, that's really critical, because once you've disenrolled him without indicating that he's been removed because of a FAPE dispute, they aren't responsible for holding IEPs, conducting assessments. All they're responsible for is doing a service plan, which will give you, 5 speech sessions a year or something. So I'm very concerned that you did this, and I think you need to circle back and explain to them why you removed him from school and that you still want him to be a student that has an IEP in your district.
So let me ask you this. If you've done this, because you didn't watch the show and you talk about this all the time, 10 days, business days written notice, or 10 days written notice.
No, 10 business days, you see, you're a good student. You got it right the first time. Never change your answer. Right?
All right. 10 business days written notice. So, but a lot of people they get emotional, something happens, they pull their kid out. There you are. It's been 10 days since you pulled your child out. And you're like, do you now have to take your child back to school for one day and then provide?
No, I don't think you do. I think you just clarify that all along what you were doing was a removal for a denial of FAPE.
Okay.
You just have to push back against this. One of the school law firms started to flock this really hard about a year ago and started telling districts to just send everybody letters saying, okay, now you're disenrolled. And, we've never had it come to anything with our cases because we write back and say, no, this isn't a correct statement of the client's position. Here's what actually happened. It's when you don't do that and months and months and months go by, there's no liability on the part of the district. And we all know that the way you're going to get the stuff you need is file for due process and settle at mediation. You can't do that if the student is not a resident of the district.
Okay. So she should get an email to them today saying, I've taken my child out of school because you're not meeting FAPE, FAPE, and here's why.
Yeah. And I'm to the extent that I'm paying for private services, I'm going to seek reimbursement from you.
Whole other sentence. Now, they also went on to ask if can an ABA therapist provide info for an IEP?
The law is very clear that you are entitled to attend and be accompanied by anybody that will assist you in securing your child's, IEP. That could be a support friend. It could be a behaviorist. It could be a pediatrician, anybody who has information that the IEP team should hear.
I think the problem becomes if you have a therapist, a behavior technician that you want to provide information for the IEP, you need to make your ABA provider aware of that. And then often the thing that I see parents come up against, Bonnie, is that they want their BCBA or one of the technicians to be at the IEP or to write a report. And often the insurance will say they're not going to pay for it.
Well, that's a different issue. But if you have somebody you want to bring, when you get the meeting notice, I think there's usually a place on the meeting notice form that you sign to indicate that you're bringing somebody.
Right. But I just would say to caregivers, you might call your ABA provider and they'll say, oh, we don't do IEPs. That's because a lot of times what they're really saying is we can't bill for that. If you really want them to go, you can private pay for them to go and just bring that up to them. Sometimes they just don't bring it up because they hate it having to charge you personally. I think it's aversive for them. So they just say they don't do them, but they will. And sometimes it is so worth it to pay behaviorists to go with you for an hour to be there because it will make a difference in what you get in your IEP. I think it's even more effective when you take a lawyer or an advocate. But to have an expert along is not a bad thing, in my opinion. Do you disagree?
Never
Bonnie?
a bad thing.
Okay.
Never a bad thing. No, because the behavioral people have a lot of information about the child that I don't necessarily have.
Right. Okay. Deli D also said that they pulled them out because they don't provide speech. And how am I paying ABA speech therapy and OT?
Now
I'm paying ABA speech therapy and OT. So
can you let us know if you're in California or somewhere else?
Yeah. And while we're waiting to hear back, Nethravati has written in and said, ma'am, my son's 2.5 years old, autism. A child can be as normal child. Please, I want to contact you. How can I? And how long does it take for a child to improve? Very slow or very fast? I don't know which one of us they're wanting to contact, Bonnie. So let's give both of our contact information. Tell people how they can contact you.
Okay, so I can be reached through the Tollner website. I can also be reached via email, byates@tollnerlawoffices.com. My phone number is 310-245-1968. For the lady in Florida, I direct you to COPA, Council of Parent Advocates and Attorneys, COPAA.net. I think you need to talk to a Florida attorney about what's going on with your case. It sounds bad to me. It doesn't sound like they're doing the right thing.
Yeah. And, I think we all hope and dream that things will just work out. But often what happens is that it works out for the school district because we wait for things to work out and they don't have to pay for what they should have to pay for our child. So I'm with Bonnie. Get yourself the help that you need. For the other person, if you need to get a hold of me, my email is s.penrod@autism-live.com. You can also always reach us if it's easier to remember. You can write to autismlive@gmail.com. autismlive@gmail.com is a great place for you to write to us at. Okay. So Bonnie, we're pretty much out of time here.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll save the last piece of business for next week. I'll just tell you what it is. It has to do with how you establish present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. So this is keying off the earlier two topics, since the functional levels of academic performance and the present levels of performance are really important if you're going to write good goals. And a lot of the time what I see in the baselines, which are the present levels, I see stuff like, Johnny has trouble at lunchtime. He often won't eat his sandwich or something, and that's not a quantified baseline that will allow you to develop a goal that's measurable. And so we're going to talk more about how you can help the school district in your IEP meetings develop meaningful present levels of performance. And we'll save that for next week. And if people want to send in questions between now and next week, we'll answer them on the air. And I'm just going to tell you all, I'm really surprised we're not getting more questions about masking, distance learning, emergency plans, retention, independent study, what's not going right at school.
Me too, Bonnie. I think part of it, my guess is that parents are so fried and so excited that their kids are back in school that they're saying, I'm just going to see if it works out. I'm going to guess that in October is when it's all going to start hitting the fan and parents are going to go, this isn't working. But it's been good for them to get the break. I think the caregivers needed the break.
Yeah.
But soon I think they're going to say that the school is not beneficial. Deli D just said the school said that my son does not need speech, but his neurologist recommends speech OT.
Okay, I say based on everything you've told me, you need to talk to a Florida lawyer now.
Yeah. Because schools are going to say that, but if your child has a diagnosis of autism, I think the case can be made that they need speech. Sometimes schools will just say, oh, well, your child can speak, so they don't need speech. And there's so much more to speech than that.
Yeah.
Most kids on the spectrum, not on the spectrum, could use good speech. So it's hard for me.
Certainly on the spectrum. My working assumption for a child that has an autism diagnosis is that his IEP services are going to include individual speech, individual occupational therapy, and perhaps when he has more skills, group OT and group speech. But he shouldn't have an IEP without those things. I think it's just not likely that he doesn't need speech. Anyway.
And the funny thing is that was always sort of like, baseline. And then suddenly when speech got hard to deliver in COVID, now suddenly all these kids don't need speech according to the school district. Yeah. Anyway, Tollner Law Offices, tell us how we can reach you there, Bonnie.
Go to the website and fill in a new, what is it called? There's some kind of form you fill in if you want a free consultation. So do that. Do that if you live in California. I have to go. I have another thing to do now. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. Give us your questions for next week. And when we come back, we'll be talking about plops.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Present levels of performance. Thank you, Shannon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Everybody.
And I just got one quick announcement here at the end of the show. During the show, we got an email letting us know that Nickelodeon is doing an open call for performers with who identify as having a disability, which autism counts as that. I know you might have an emotion about that, but they're counting it. So they're doing an open call. You can go to Nick online, opencall.nick.com. They are specifying that they want people who are 18 years old or younger. All talent that identifies as disabled is encouraged to submit. They want for you to, and they list all the different things here. You can be using assistive technology or not. We're looking for funny kids with great confidence, fun personalities, and lots of energy. If your kid can sing, dance, rap, and or play instruments, we want to see those talents too. They are committed to diverse, inclusive casting. For every role, please submit qualified performers without regard to disability. They want you to make a video. There are instructions. It's too long for me to go through the whole thing. So go to Nick online, opencall.nick.com. They're very specific taping instructions. It is due by October 15th. So you've got a couple of days to do that. But if you have a kiddo or if you are under the age of 18 and you are talented and want to audition for Nickelodeon, what an opportunity. We've been told that this was coming, that all of the studios were going to be very proactive in their casting and that there were going to be some open calls. So look, there it begins, Nickelodeon. If you know somebody, share that information with them. Hey, we're back tomorrow with a very important show. Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. And we've got a great guest. Karen Nolte is going to be with us talking about the GEMMA project. It's something that you're going to want to know about. It's a new research project. And I think that you guys are going to be really super interested in it. So be here tomorrow for that. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. Thanks for watching Autism Live. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.